Hello, everybody. Good morning, Britain. Good morning, Serbia. Welcome to the first online conference, InFocus Talks UK and Serbia, organized by Column Media Communications, a company that publishes magazine Diplomacy and Commerce, the economy syndication in Serbia. Let's start. The UK and Serbia recently have signed a partnership trade and cooperation agreement to ensure that £682 million trade can continue and grow between the two countries. The agreement secures preferential trade access between the UK and Serbia with significant savings for businesses and support jobs and the wider economy. It also sets out how the two countries will strengthen political, economic, security and cultural ties, and reaffirms the UK's support for governance reform in Serbia that will safeguard its competitive business environment and open democratic society. Today we'll try to summarize the most important aspects of British-Serbian overall relations. And okay, we are more than pleased to welcome our participants. In today's talk, it's from the British-Serbian Chamber of Commerce. We have Dr. David Landsman. Hello, David.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Mr. Richard Robinson, Executive Director from Belgrade.
Good morning.
Ms. Jadranka Dirvišević-Kitarić, Executive Director from London, actually from Cambridge now, isn't it so?
Good morning. I'm just presently in Cambridge.
Okay. And our host is Mr. Robert Tobin, the President of Color Press Group. Hello, Robert.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Rikica Milošević. I'm the editor of The Economist World in 2021 for Serbia, Croatia, and North Macedonia. In Focus, we will talk and record the meeting, and it will follow. It could be followed on YouTube channel of Diplomacy and Commerce magazine. So let's start from the first round of questions. We'll start from Dr. David Landsman. For the beginning, welcome and thank you for accepting our invitation to join this talk. So on the 1st of January, Brexit actually and finally happened. It will reshape the UK-EU relationships and relations. So far, it has actually reshaped it. So far, it's 1st of June now, and it will reshape and has reshaped Serbian-British economic relations. How will it happen? How would you assess our overall relations today?
Good morning. Well, thank you very much for that question. I think it's probably a little bit early to make the final assessment on Brexit and on the UK's relationship with the EU. Whatever numbers people might have been crunching have clearly been seriously affected by the pandemic. So it's really rather difficult to make that assessment. But what I think we can say, as far as the UK-Serbia relationship is concerned, is that now the UK is outside the EU, as is Serbia, the appeal of trade between the two countries, I think, will grow. Because if you're a British business sitting in the UK, you no longer think to yourself, well, the EU is what we're part of. That's the obvious first place to go. These other places are a little bit more difficult. Shall I bother? Actually, there's a much more level playing field. And I think as far as countries like Serbia are concerned, geographically firmly in Europe, nearby, easy business relations in many ways. Many people speak English. Markets that people can learn about and understand quite easily. I think Brexit will, I don't suppose it was quite the purpose of Brexit, but I think Brexit will have a very positive effect on British-Serbian business relationships. And I think the interest that we're already seeing, both from British companies and from the British government's trade department and so on, is really quite significant. Now, it's very early days. Very early days. The trade agreement that you mentioned has only just been signed relatively recently. So it's going to take time to have that effect, but I think people are already opening their eyes to Serbia, and that's perhaps the message from the British side. From the Serbian side, and of course we as a chamber represent British companies and Serbian companies equally. That's the great thing about chambers of commerce. We're not like governments. Governments are only interested in exporting from one side to the other and attracting investment back the other way. We're interested in both sides, both directions. And I think Serbian companies will find that Britain is more interested in doing business, will be more alert to the opportunity for investment. There've already been some modest improvements in the labour mobility and visa situation that we would like to see more, I'm sure, but there's a good start. So I think in both directions, one can see the potential at what is a very early stage.
I would like to ask you one thing. I brought yesterday's issue from the newspaper Politica. You can see on the front page there is a British flag and Big Ben. Big Ben. Actually, it's written London is lowering the custom taxes on Serbian products. And one thing that is mentioned here is that President Vučić said that we are a bit late, like 5 months late with this agreement. Brexit happened on the 1st of January, and it came into effect like a few days ago on 20th of May. And President Vučić said that Serbian GDP will rise a little bit less than expected because of that, like 0.1 or 0.2. What took us so long to sign it and ratify it now? I mean, we knew that Brexit was a fact in June 2016. Why now? I mean, we could have done it on the 1st of January.
Well, first of all, when you showed me that picture of Politica, I was a bit worried. The picture of the Union flag, was this going to be a good news or a bad news story? Glad to see it's a good news story. I think from the, I think sitting in the UK, I think one has to bear in mind that the UK, Brexit was a British decision. Britain decided to leave the EU, and it found itself needing to negotiate trade continuation agreements with a lot of countries. This is something
UK
had not done for something that Britain had not done for a very long time, negotiate its own trade agreements. And I think that there was a real capacity issue in the British government. Now, the negotiations themselves, I'm not involved in. I used to be a diplomat, but I'm not involved in politics anymore. I know that those negotiations, like all negotiations, take a while to be concluded. We, as a chamber, were very concerned during that period of time that they should be concluded as quickly as possible. And we did as much as we could directly by engaging with the trade ministers and trade ministries of both countries, and through the Serbian Chamber of Commerce and the British Chambers of Commerce and so on, because it did matter, and it mattered to our members that they were having to face these additional obstacles and tariffs. But the point is, it's through now. It's been agreed. It's coming into force. And looking forward, accepting the difficulties there have been, but looking forward, this means that we are now, first of all, back where we were. We're on a firm footing for, as you said at the beginning, continuing and growing trade. But I think it is also an important signal that the governments of the two countries have sent to business that we are up for doing this. We've done it. We've reached an agreement. Maybe there will be scope in time to improve and extend agreements further, but it's a signal that there is support. And I think we're seeing from the ministries and the governments of both sides that support as well. So, yeah, I wish it had been done on January the 1st. It would have saved the Chamber a great deal of time and our members a great deal of time and money. But it's been done and we're moving on.
Great, we're actually happy whenever it came. Welcome. Robert, I would like to ask you now from the perspective of the owner of the biggest publishing company, maybe in the Western Balkans, and someone who cooperates with the UK company, The Economist, for so long. What do you think about cooperation between the UK and Serbia?
Hello, Zikica. Hello to everyone. Our cooperation with The Economist started in 2009 in Dubai. It was FIPP license fair there. FIPP is the International Federation of Periodical Press based in London also. And that was the very beginning. It was 2009. That was the very beginning of the economic crisis, and really not the moment to start new license edition. But we were brave and decided to launch the Economist Serbian edition then in 2009. Today, after 12 years, we have the Economist edition in Serbia, Croatia, and as you mentioned, in North Macedonia. And this December, we will launch Bosnia and Herzegovina. Since 2012, we organized the Economist Conference in the National Parliament of Serbia in December every year with new edition. And last 2 years in Croatia too. And this December we plan to organize the first The Economist Conference in Sarajevo in cooperation with Central Bank of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Also, as you mentioned, in 2016 we launched Diplomacy and Commerce monthly magazine here in Serbia in English in cooperation with The Economist. So we have a syndication contract to use their articles in our edition. Next year we launched, in 2017 we launched a Croatian edition, and 2 years later in 2019 Austrian edition in Vienna in German. Before The Economist in 2006, we signed a license contract with Hello magazine, so another UK edition. We launched this magazine in 2007, and today we are proud publisher of Serbian edition of Hello last 40 years. So as you can see, it is really in tough times, in times of economic crisis, in times of technological changes, we are still strong in this publishing segment, and we have our strong partners in UK, and I hope it will last.
Great, Robert. Thank you for your perspective. Mr. Robinson, you're executive director in Belgrade. You have abundant experience as a director of the British Chamber. How would you rate the Serbian market and the cooperation we have with the UK, having in mind that the UK is not exactly the traditional British market and not traditionally the area of British investing?
Thank you very much for that question. In simple terms, I see the Western Balkans as bilateral trade and investment as a great opportunity now for actually in both directions. Talking about the British attitude, yes, historically, for the reasons that David mentioned earlier, I think that it was just so much easier for British companies to export to particularly the nearer companies in the EU, that they found the additional challenges of exporting to the Balkans in general and Serbia in particular, just sort of that it wasn't as attractive. I think one of the consequences of Brexit is that sort of export markets are now being reevaluated by a lot of British companies. And now clearly a combination of the difference between exporting to the EU and exporting to the Western Balkans is much less. I think furthermore, I think the whole issues brought out by the pandemic to do with the issue about nearshoring is an attractive one, whether it's in the IT sector, whether it's actually manufacturing and importing to the UK. I think being able to just put stuff on the back of a lorry, even if they're new customs regulations, it remains attractive. So yeah, and I think overall what we're seeing now is increased interest because of this reevaluation. So in the UK-Serbian bilateral trade, in the food and drink sector, I think what you're seeing is an increased interest in the agriculture and food processing sector in Serbia, and trying to break into the British market, and particularly developing relationships with British food retailers. We're seeing again and again. In the other way around, I think that what we're seeing is the big branded goods or mass branded goods, whether it be sort of alcohol based or actually just fast moving consumer goods, increasingly that sort of companies are now thinking about the Western Balkans possibly rather less as an add-on to sort of the farther parts of the EU and as an export destination in their own right. The other huge opportunity that I think UK companies are thinking about for the first time is all the infrastructure needs of the Western Balkans, and I think we're seeing increasingly sort of a wide range of companies, but particularly in the civil engineering sector, looking at the Western Balkans and trying to get a fair share, as it were, of all the investment contracts in the transport sector, in the telecommunications sector, everything that you hear the Serbian government talking about most days. So, yeah, I think now there is a real cusp of a change. Where it will lead, of course, it's a case of how many people actually take up the opportunities. But there's no doubt that there's a recognition on both sides that the opportunities exist and that what's happened in the past is no longer relevant.
Great, thank you, Richard. And last but not least, the only lady in today's talk, Jadranka. You're the executive director in London. If you were to compare the UK and Serbian markets, what would you say? What are the most significant similarities and differences?
Well, as Adam Smith reminded us in the 18th century, different countries are good at different things. So, for example, the UK has very notable competitive advantage in advanced machinery, design, manufacturing, biopharma, and advanced technologies. So, for example, JCB, Jaguar Land Rover, which is a British Motors, who are very valuable members of ours, are the one who are already present in Serbia, and they are fantastic. The same my colleague Richard Robinson mentioned about whiskey and gin, which is already in Serbia, but also in the region. It is also important to highlight the high standards in civil engineering and project finance. By the same token, Serbia has a competitive advantage in ICT, and the reason for that is actually education system, which focuses on STEAM subjects. So the reason, for example, we have done ICT tech webinars, which we just started 2 weeks ago. We would like to highlight that great opportunity what Serbia and youth can offer to the UK market. The second advantage which Serbia has is in specialty agriculture and food manufacturing. In recent years, it's adding more and more value. I can use an example, for example, about huge surprise by the British market on those particular taste, design, and quality of those products. When we attended the specialty food in 2019, together with our chairman, Dr. David Lansman, the British market and the buyers were so surprised. They asked us, where have you been? This is fantastic. Because of that, we are planning to introduce in the larger scale Serbian products next year at IFE, the largest event of food and beverage in the UK. And we hope Serbia will be there as a pavilion to show all of those great tastes. So to play to its comparative advantage, Serbia and the UK as a country should play to their strengths. We and the BSCC are very determined as a bilateral chamber to bring the best from both countries to the benefits of all stakeholders. Well, the new trade agreement makes this much easier, and we are very much looking forward to that.
Great, thank you. And what about wine? I think that wine is today the second biggest or the biggest growing industry in Serbia. Is it making a breakthrough to the British market?
I would say we have to see it. The reason we haven't done as much as we should, there are three elements. The first, you need enough quantity to be entering the market. In the same time as a quantity, regular quantity, you need to have a good price to compete with New Zealand, Australia, Chile, South African. I wouldn't mention French and Spanish wine. We tried in 2015 and 16, we had the exhibition in Serbian embassy in the UK with all famous which we all well know, Alexandrovich, Kovacevic, I forgot the name for Vojvodina, do forgive me. There are Zlatko Bogdan, I believe, but it was too early. Now we can see what's happened in Serbia. It's improved a lot. There are lots of new vineyards, technology is better. And I believe now is the right time to enter the market again. So, which will connect with the tourism. And this is the way how to go forward as advantage of Serbia, which is country in Europe.
Mr. Landsman, Dr. Landsman, I'm sorry. The UK is reformulating its trade deals and policies towards the world. At the same time, enforces a swift and successful vaccination rollout, which has proven to be the crucial thing for the recovery of the economy. The overseas territories are among the best in the world, like Gibraltar, the Cayman Islands, etc., Montserrat. And the UK itself is doing great. Can we expect the British economy to be one of the leaders in 2021 and 22? Because I wrote an article about that, and I've read quite a lot of articles in British press about how fast the pace is going to be comparing to the other countries of Europe, which started vaccination rollout a few months later.
Well, it's been good to see all the way through from the earliest days of the vaccine rollout that Britain and Serbia have been way up at the top of the European League. And I'm sure that's going to stand both countries in good stead as we go forward. I mean, I can only defer to you. You've written the articles. I've read some of the articles on the promise of the British economy, and it certainly looks extremely encouraging after a very low, a very steep fall. It's rising very quickly. It's actually quite difficult to compare some of the numbers from one country to another, as you know, because people count in slightly different ways. But it's a very positive story. I think what's interesting from our point of view as a British-Serbian Chamber of Commerce, and for us talking about British-Serbian trade, is that there's an awful lot going on which provides a lot of opportunities. There's the shock, if you like, of Brexit and the way in which companies, as we've already said, as Richard said as well, we're reappraising the opportunities and looking in different ways. There's the shock of the pandemic, and again, as we've said, what that does to supply chains, what that does to businesses thinking. And now, because of the effect of the vaccine, and I think the numbers are looking pretty positive in Serbia and in Britain, that gives more opportunities for companies. So this is just something for us to seize. It doesn't mean that the Chamber is going to be able to come back in a year or two's time and celebrate massive improvements in trade. We've got to work at it, and we've got to see those opportunities and promote those opportunities. But they are really there now in a way they wouldn't have been so obvious in the case of business as usual. It's people seeing things. If you haven't seen something before, you won't have reacted to it. If you see something that's different, you can take those opportunities. Everybody who's in business knows that you're looking out for opportunities to do something different. And I think now is a great time. So, yeah, I think we can look into 2021 as it goes on in a positive way.
Great, thank you. Richard, the UK and Serbia are to straighten business ties by signing a partnership trading cooperation agreement. What does it mean in practice? You said something about that. Can you add something more?
Well, I think the first thing is to understand where it's coming from. Essentially, after Brexit, as David explained, the UK realised pretty quickly that they needed to put in place something like 70 new bilateral trade agreements in place. The Serbian and the whole approach, frankly, the only approach they could have taken was one of actually not trying to negotiate something new, but trying as quickly as possible to put in bilateral terms what previously been covered on an EU basis. And obviously for Serbia, that's the EU Stabilization and Association Agreement. So frankly, it's a case of putting back, to start off with, putting back what was there before on a bilateral basis. So, but it is different. And I think it is particularly but it's also important not to look at the trade agreement in isolation, more in terms of the whole environment. And it's all the changes that I think leads to the opportunities that I mentioned briefly before. And so I think really that it's worth not focusing on the trade agreement itself. It's there, it's important, and the last few months have been a bit difficult, but it's also worth remembering that things like the double tax treaty between Serbia and the UK hasn't changed at all. The bilateral investment protection treaty remains unchanged. So it's actually, despite everything, there is quite a lot that is left unchanged. The most important thing is the change in attitude to exporters and investors. And so, for instance, in my time, since I joined the Chamber a little over a year ago, I have been pleasantly surprised by the number of Serbian companies that have been looking at investing in the UK, most typically in the sort of IT tech startups, not entirely. But these have been regular, we've had regular inquiries, and the reasons are frankly, nothing to do with the trade treaty. It's either that principally that they're looking to get close to potential investors, given the huge ecosystem in the UK for tech investing, or that the companies have broken successfully into the Western Balkans markets. They're market leaders, and they want to find another market, and for reasons that make sense to them as individual companies, they've decided that the UK is the next market to try and break into. And sometimes actually it's both reasons, but it's and so it's important that we have the stability and the continuation of all these other treaties. As trade has been adversely affected for the last few months, I expect a significant proportion of that will be caught up later in the year. But given the figures you were quoting at the beginning of the seminar, I would be slightly surprised if we exceeded it. I would be pleasantly surprised, but I do think that going forward, the trend is going to be upwards in bilateral trade.
Thank you, Richard, for your analysis. And now a little bit lighter topic for Jadranka and Robert. British culture is so popular in Serbia. It was so during former Yugoslavia, with pop music, with TV shows like Allo Allo, Monty Python Flying Circus, Only Fools and Horses. I don't know, how should I say, they educated us when we were kids, and they educate people now. British soft power is really strong. It's a funny thing to say, but the Brits are really strong with the soft power. Can we enhance this cooperation and presence of British culture even more, and vice versa? How could we present the Serbian culture in the UK?
Well, it's a question for me.
Yep.
Well, I will share with you something very interesting, how to present a good British brand and knowledge of Serbia within the Britain. 2008, I traveled on Queen Mary with, I didn't travel with him, but he was on the Queen Mary, John Cleese from Monty Python. So yeah, when I went there, I said, Mr. Cleese, and I wanted him to sign the book, and he said, "Where are you from?" You know the way he's very tall, long arms, very, very interesting character. I said, "Well, I'm not sure if you're aware, it's a country called Serbia, used to be Yugoslavia." My God, he started giving me a lecture about Yugoslavia and particularly Serbia. His memories were fantastic. And I thought, my God, this is very, very good. But what I have noticed in the last, I would say, I have been in Britain I live here for 23 years. So for the last 7, 8 years, I don't think we have done enough. Please don't take me wrong, this is not a criticism. This is a positive way forward. And I believe that now with the new trade agreement, or this new way of trading, not just in the goods and services, we should really look at culture, media, tourism and sport much more careful and bring more to Serbia and from Serbia to Britain. So for example, I'm very aware the gaming industry is incredibly improving. We had them at our ICT webinar, and that's something we don't need to be present. We can bring to the new generation quite a lot to understand what we do. Then the next one is tourism. Serbia has a great potential. So why don't we make better videos? Why don't we bring and show how can we do? Show our spas, which is a fantastic. And now that we have fantastic infrastructure, which I learn is going very well, and we're aware of that, we should bring this bridge much closer, because being Serbian and living in Britain for more than 20 years, I would like to say we have a quite similar sense of humor. You will be very surprised, but we do.
I know.
And yeah, and I'm not sad in the way that when we use example from British coming to visit Serbia's exit, for example, I would like to hear more of them. What is that we can offer to Britain? What is that Britain can offer to us? There are lots of elements, from fashion, film industry, which is doing quite well. They started in 2014, presenting in the UK. Now they're fantastic. We have wine, we have lovely rafting we can offer, which Brits love very much. So there are huge opportunity for such a small country as Serbia. And Britain is a big country and has a lots of different elements as well to the tourism. So I'm waiting for day when we can fly from Manchester to Serbia directly, and also that brings in football. I'm not a big fan of football, but that something brings the excellent image of Serbia in the UK. So when we look overall, I think we all tried here in Britain, Serbs, diaspora, Serbian embassy, we all trying really hard to bring closer, but it wasn't easy. But hopefully we can do better in both ways very shortly. And I'm sure Robert Choban and what he's doing so far, I have been following, they're doing a great job. And I can see this as a new humanism renaissance between two countries. So let's see next year where we will be after this question.
Great, thank you. We have a good band singing in English. Robert knows I have such a band.
Oh yeah.
I wish we could export such bands to Britain. And Robert, another question is the next question is for you. What do you think? How Serbia can raise the presence of our goods and services in the UK, our tourist potentials? What should be done by our government, maybe to promote the country through some campaigns? You know, we have Exit Festival, one of the biggest festivals in Europe, and every year prior to 2019 and the last cancelled event, we had 15,000 Brits coming each year. I don't know what's going to happen this year. This year we're going to have like 20% of the tickets. But it will happen. What do you think? How can we promote ourselves in Britain in any way?
Thank you, Žikica. Thank you, Jadranka, and Queen Mary. Well, very classy. I was there also. I was traveling there on Queen Mary in 2005. Oh. But not with this gentleman.
Well, he was just happened. It was on the Queen Mary. It just happened.
Yeah. Very classy ship. Yeah, it is really important for Serbia to have a strong presence in the UK market, especially now after Brexit. The UK is a big market, the Commonwealth of the nation also, and I think this is important task for Serbian Chamber of Commerce, but also for the Ministry of Trade, Telecommunications and Tourism, and as well for the Ministry of the Economy. as a publisher or as an owner and publisher from the side of a private publishing company, they are more than welcome for any ideas regarding cooperation, promotion of Serbian tourism in the UK, British tourism in Serbia, and the region of former Yugoslavia. We have our Hello Travel magazine. So there is maybe room for a new edition, Hello Travel Serbia, in the UK, or Hello Travel UK in Serbia. For us, this is, as someone mentioned today, and as Sir Winston Churchill said, business as usual, really.
Great.
I would like to ask Robert one thing. I think what would be great, Richard and I met Russ last week, and we discussed how we can bring better and closer to the British market. We have a very good idea about one big chef who will invite maybe to do a program about Serbia. He's just doing in Greece. So let's see how that goes, because I think that will change the view of all what we can offer, because some parts of Serbia, like a Tuscany, I would like to say, maybe
Absolutely.
I'm exaggerating, Šumadija, but it's really like Tuscany. And
Fruška Gora.
oh, sorry, I forgot Fruška Gora, yes, yes.
I'm from Vojvodina. I'm from Vojvodina. So, no, I really used last year during the pandemics and everything to explore Serbia. It was really enough time to do that, cycling and traveling, especially here in our Vojvodina region. It is close for us and easy for cycling. And I'm sure now after last 12 months that you are really right about this.
Thank you. Actually, I wrote an article for Diplomacy and Commerce that the Brits are actually falling in love once again with their resort towns, and that this year and last year they flocked to the British coastal towns, and it will be a new love affair. And when we were reading about that in Guardian and everywhere else, I suddenly had so many memories about the TV shows like Poirot or something like that, Miss Marple. So it would be really romantic for us to visit Britain and during the summer and to bathe in Irish Sea or Atlantic Ocean or English Channel. What can we do? The question is for David and Richard, maybe Adranka. What can we do to ease the visa regime?
Well, as a chamber, we're obviously very, we're very focused on promoting trade both ways. Trade is partly about goods, but it's a lot more than goods. So it means people moving around as well. Otherwise, you don't get services if people don't deliver services, whether it's IT or it's consultancy of any kind, or it's Serbian restaurants in London, which would be a great thing to have more of. So we're very much focused on that. The situation since Brexit, as I mentioned, it involves a slight improvement, a gradual improvement, if you like, in the ease with which non-EU nationals, like Serbian nationals, can get visas, can come to work in the UK. The conditions are better than they were. The EU non-EU divide is gone, and the opportunities are greater. I think we will continue to work with the British government where we can to encourage them to take an approach which encourages movement of labour. My feeling in general, and it's a kind of personal view, is that some people may think this is strange, some people may think it's understandable, but since Brexit, some of the pressure politically has gone off this issue in the UK. It's become easier to make a case for labour mobility now that it's been detached from the Brexit issue, which is now closed. That doesn't mean to say we can promise that the British government's going to change its rules anytime soon, but we can work with them, and we can work to make the economic arguments along with, for example, the British Chambers of Commerce and the other trade associations in the UK to do that. I think the reality is, and I think this is right, my colleagues will correct me if I'm wrong, but in the conversations that we've had, both with the immigration lawyers who are members of our chamber, but also those British companies like the IT companies who are setting up and investing in the UK, they haven't told us that visas are now a major obstacle that blocks that process. It's actually manageable. Obviously, it'd be easier if you didn't need a visa at all, and it'd be very simple. But there's a process there. There's going to be a process there, and I haven't heard from the companies that this is a showstopper for them when they want to invest, when they want to expand their business. So that's my thought. Richard may have something to add. He may decide I'm wrong, and we'll tell you so.
I largely agree with David. I think that, but I would make two further points. Firstly, is that the relaxations are very much on the labour and employment side, and not on the tourist and travel side, which is a disappointment to many people from Serbia. I think there is, however, one obvious complication in the near term, and that is everything that's related to the additional controls over the pandemic. And I don't think that it is clear where that will leave. I was just thinking this morning, listening to the news, that actually it's quite possible that one of the policies in the UK, because of the fact that you've got this so-called Indian variant, is now the most not popular, the most common variant, and that actually trying to stop that going out of the country is going to become a policy issue, as well as so I cannot think that I absolutely agree with David in that it's not come up, visas have not come up as a business issue. I do, however, think that it's going to remain complicated, complicated by the needs for controlling the pandemic across the world in ways that I don't think we can predict.
I would like to add on the business side about the visas. For example, in 2019, we invited 10 companies to exhibit at Specialty Food. Those companies never been in the UK, maybe one or two. They all receive visas in 1 week, I would say less than a week. So it is not that difficult if you have reason why do you travel. And I'm sure this will just improve by time. So we shouldn't look at negative, look positive, how to improve it, not to complain.
Great, thank you, everybody. Now the third round of questions. David, you know the Western Balkan region quite well, and your connection to Serbia dates back to 1997. What do you think about Serbia's role in the region, and where do you see the potential for the cooperation growth?
Well, gosh, you mentioned 1997. Well, the world's changed a lot since then, and and the prospects in the region look infinitely more rosy than they did back then, I would say.
Yeah, Oasis was the best band in 1997. Now they don't exist.
Yeah, I think one of the things I was struck by. I mean, I've been with the chamber now for a couple of years, and very early on, I attended an event in London at which Mr. Marko Čadež, the president of the Serbian Chamber of Commerce, spoke. And on that occasion, he wasn't speaking so much as president of the Serbian Chamber as president of I think it's called the WB6 Chamber, or the Chamber's Initiative of the countries in the region. And that demonstrates there's a degree of cooperation between the businesses of the region. And we see also on the political side between the governments of the region that obviously we couldn't have imagined back in 1997. But the important thing is looking forward. There's a recognition that from a business point of view, from an infrastructure point of view, and from so many other ways, collaboration between the countries of the region is really important. And it's important between countries that are in the EU and countries that are not in the EU, between the 6 that are not yet members of the EU. And that is the way that business grows. If you're looking at it from the point of view of, say, a British investor or British business, looking at the market of the region as a whole is so much more interesting than looking at a smaller market from one country on its own. And of course, we all know that a lot of business in the region starts from or can be done through Serbia. So that brings a lot of opportunities. And I think when business can credibly see, British business in our case, can credibly see the companies of the region and the governments of the region increasingly working together. I mean, all the kind of the fact that people are talking about mini Schengen agreements and all the things that go with that. Now, how they work out, when they're completed, that's a different story. But it shows a mindset and it shows an approach. And of course, an infrastructure project, a road, a railway, whatever, doesn't stop at the border. And so these things are seen together. So I think there are big opportunities. Now, I mean, what I say to British companies when I'm trying to interest them in the region or in Serbia is, you don't have to take my word from it. You might think I'm biased, British Serbian Chamber of Commerce, but look at the German companies, look at the Italian companies, look at the Chinese companies, look at whoever it is who are in Serbia, who are investing, who have seen these opportunities. They make it work. It seems sensible to them. It's worth looking at. And I think I think the opportunities are there for the region. I think the region as a whole, it must be the next big growth story in Europe, because the potential is there, the money is there now in terms of the various kinds of investment for infrastructure development and so on. There's a lot of untapped potential. We talk about tourism. I mean, the gap between where Serbian tourism is now and what its potential is huge. Take wine, similarly. I used to live in Greece, and Greek wine was not something you could find in the UK, apart from one or two well-known brands that people would find when they were on holiday and want to have when they got back. Now it's one of the growth countries of origin for wine. There's no reason why Serbia shouldn't be able to do exactly the same. The opportunity is there. So it's the gap to me between where things are now and where they could be, what hasn't been exploited. And that's true, both looking at it from the point of view of Serbia, looking at opportunities in Britain, and Britain looking at opportunities in Serbia and through Serbia to the region, as you say. That is what makes me most optimistic. If I think back to 1997 or some of the later periods of time I spent in the region, and I think about the infrastructure, and I think how long it took to get from one city to another city then, and how long it takes now, how much less it takes now, that makes such a difference and can be such a multiplier. It's a multiplier for the economy of the region. It's also, I think, a multiplier for the perception of the region from outside. Because if you go and you can get from one place to another quickly, you see a system that is functioning. You see a relative ease of movement. That makes a big difference to the opportunity. So I think, if you want to look at some part of Europe at the moment, why not look at one which has got a real gap between reality and potential that is there for making work. So I find it very hard to see why anyone would not be optimistic about the prospects for the region right now.
Great, thank you. And the same question for Richard, but a little bit widened. The city recognized by Emerging Europe's panel of experts as having the most economic potential was the Serbian capital, Belgrade. The Future Emerging Europe Awards 2021 is the 4th edition of the program, which showcases the best of the Emerging Europe region. Why this award is of such importance for Belgrade? Having in mind, could Brits make more investments? David said that the British companies, the Italian, Austrian companies, Chinese companies have found their place in the market. The market is hungry for everything. It's a new one. After decades of stagnation, now we have consumers boom, and I think that the Brits could find their place. What can we do? What can we do? What does it mean for a average British businessman to hear that Belgrade is the city in emerging Europe with most economic potential?
I wouldn't. I was very pleased when Belgrade got this recognition recently, and it's entirely justified. But I think from a point of view of perception, it's just a small part. I think, for better or for worse, that Serbia does not have a high profile in the UK, and that actually what little profile it is very backward looking, for fairly obvious reasons. And anything like this is going to change people's perceptions. I think it is different in terms of businesses and whether they're investing or trading. But most of all, we as the Chamber have got to, and in fact, Serbia generally, have actually got to get over this complete lack of knowledge. And this is where things like the award help, because it just gives raises the profile. Really what we need is a coherent strategy, which the British Serbian Chamber can fit into, but it can't drive. That's really down to the Serbian government, which, to be fair, with the Serbia Creates program, is starting to do this. But I think coming back, because the UK and Serbia are on other sides of Europe, it's always been that little bit more difficult. But coming back to where I started, the opportunity is definitely there. We will do our bit to improve the perceptions of Serbia in the UK, and of course, in slightly different ways, promoting the UK and Serbia. But it's going to be a long, slow process. The more successful investments that happen, and there have been several announced recently, that it's going to be sort of a positive feedback loop. It's going to get easier each time, and it's going to be more plausible because there'll be more successful examples of investors who've invested for manufacturing purposes, either to re-export back to the UK or to use other trade agreements to re-export to other places, particularly further east. It's very exciting, and we're only at the beginning. And it's nice at the beginning to have this recognition given to the city of Belgrade.
Thank you, Richard. It was a great analysis. And now something for Jadranka. Do you know that I've never been to the British Isles, actually? I've been to the UK, but not in the England or Scotland or anywhere else, but to the overseas territories. And I think that many people would like to see Britain firsthand, and to learn something. It's important, and to see how the people function, how they live, how they do business, not only the tourist purposes. How important is to share knowledge and experiences, especially when it comes to young people? Young people would really love to see Oxford and Cambridge, and I don't know, the pubs of London, or maybe Peckham, to see where Rodney and Delboy lived. Which projects will be in focus this year? We know that you're working a lot on this exchange of knowledge. Can you elaborate a little bit about this?
Of course. I would say that perception survey is changing by the day, as we can see with the new Foreign Direct Investment Award. But actually what I believe is the young people, they are the future of each country, including Serbia. Therefore, for the future bilateral relationship depends on cultural understanding between our two countries, the UK and Serbia, because we are talking about the UK and Serbia today. We have been very supportive over years and years, I would say since I joined 2014, to our young people from Serbia, and particularly our previous chairman, Sir Paul Judge, who was patron of George Business School in Cambridge, he was always saying youth and entrepreneurship, make them to be entrepreneur, is something will create the better future for Serbia and any country. So we have been working very closely with the Paxim Foundation. I don't know if you heard about them. Every year, it was supposed to be last year, the 10th one, I believe, 10th or 9th. That's how many years we've been doing it. We celebrate every year in May at the Trinity College, Cambridge. We have dinner for 75 people, where we bring business people to meet our students at Cambridge, but also Paxim scholars who usually they have 2 or 3 per year. Those scholars who are doing master at George Business School, they have to return to the country and they have to take that knowledge, which is fantastic things what they are doing. But it's not just about that particular. What we do, because of very diversified board of directors, of our knowledge in the UK, knowledge in Serbia, we try to bring closer all of that. We try to help in the way, I will use an example now with ICT and FinTech. We will do anything to help for our startups to bring here, to learn how does Britain do. This market is a very, very advantage, very mature. There's a lots of angels, business angels, lots of good mentoring, lots of good schools in Oxford, in London, all over the UK. And we have from our diaspora who works on those universities. So when you think overall, just in Cambridge, I think we have more than 50 students in Cambridge alone, from undergraduates, postgraduates, and that's something to cherish, to support. My dream would be one day that we all know where are we all together, that we have not kind of conference, but sharing that knowledge and to bring much closer to each other, because those people, those young people, they're ambassadors of Serbia in the UK. So at the moment, we are very focused on entrepreneurship, and we spoke with Digital Serbia, how we can improve, how we can increase that knowledge. Now that we all on Zoom, we don't need to travel, so everything is much faster. So we'll be introducing also with the UK government, Department of International Trade is very keen to work with us. We as a team, David and Richard and myself, we've been doing this for the last several months, very hard to change all that, that relation. So much happening. And as you can see, we are a small chamber, but we are really doing quite a lot of different things. And the only way we can do with very close partners who are very strong in their field and sector. But what we do, we bring that bridge, we make life easier. So much will happen, you will hear from us.
Thank you, Jadranka. It's a great job, as I see. And Robert, one question for you about the cooperation in art, culture, and youth. What is your impression about the ties between the two countries in those areas?
We had great potential in this area too. Today, we have a great ambassador of UK to Serbia, a great Serbian ambassador to the UK, and also great Minister of Culture and Information of Republic of Serbia. So I think this is momentum really for improving this kind of cooperation in those fields. For example, with the Ministry of Culture and Ministry of Construction, our group started an initiative for protection of cultural heritage, especially castles and palaces in Serbia, and the majority of them are here in our area of Vojvodina. And I think that the UK experience in this area of castles and palaces can be extremely helpful in this area too.
Thank you, Robert. And I think we're getting closer to the end. And I would like to ask the last question for everybody. Thank you for the fruitful and successful discussion that we had today. And for the very end, I can hear some words about the future developments of British-Serbian relations. What can we expect in the future? David, from your perspective as a chairman in London, what does a partnership, trade and cooperation agreement bring in the future, and what can we expect? I don't know, in the next 5 years, let's say.
Well, I suppose, what does success look like? Success, I guess, looks like both countries looking at the other one much more at the top of the list, thinking I'm looking for opportunities. What about Serbia? What about Britain? That hasn't been the case in the past, but I'd see no reason why it shouldn't be. Success looks to me like seeing more Serbian businesses in the UK. I think it seems like I'd like to see some more Serbian food and wine on the shops in the UK. That would certainly be successful from a personal point of view for mine, but I think that would be a great thing. I think I would hope to see more British products in Serbia, more British involvement in some of those keynote infrastructure projects. And we haven't, I think, mentioned very much renewable energy and the green economy, but I'd like to see British companies involved in some of those projects in the region, as well as the roads and the railways and the digital infrastructure. And I think all that is possible. It's not going to happen by itself. It's not going to happen. We won't wake up one day and see it happen. But I think the framework is there. The groundwork is there. The opportunity is there in a way it hasn't been in the past. And whenever anyone sort of looks as if they're not confident about something happening, I say, well, if you haven't really tried, you can't say you failed. And I think in the past, not because anyone hasn't worked hard, but the opportunities just haven't been there. But if we try now, there's no reason why success shouldn't look like all the things I just mentioned.
Great. Saying something, you mentioned something about renewable energy, and I remembered something about green goals and the forthcoming summit in Glasgow about climate change and green energy. So it could be in every country, and especially in Serbia, it could be an area of huge change in investment and a good place for potential British companies to participate. And Richard, what do you think? What do you think about the future? I don't know. Give me your predictions about the forthcoming 5 years.
Well, I think probably at the moment what we've faced is a huge temporary increase in business risk from the pandemic, from Brexit. And I think these things we will inevitably pick up because the pandemic will sort of will eventually go away, even if in a slightly more complicated way than people and slower way than people wish. Brexit, we're still sorting things out. And whilst Brexit does not affect bilateral commercial relations directly, indirectly, it affects it in a lot of ways. And as people learn the ways around things, learn what can be done, what can't be done, identify the opportunities, that will improve the business relationship between the two countries. I think there's one other thing, and that is that Serbia continues to emphasize the importance of the rule of law, and I haven't mentioned our involvement with the Foreign Investors Council, which is driving it through as the main business organization focusing on this. But basically, this has to continue. I see no reason why it shouldn't, but that is required for the business environment in Serbia to continue to improve, and that of itself will encourage more foreign investment, more foreign trade, and that will improve all Serbs or all Serbian residents, the quality of life, because goods will be more easily available, they'll be more cheaply available, and the certainty, both from business life and personal life, from a rule of law, will make everybody's life better. I'm sure it will happen. I'm sure it'll be slow and not necessarily straight forward in a straight line, but I think that is also an important way forward to help the commercial relationship. And I look forward to it happening or continuing.
Me too. Thank you. Jadranka, what can we learn from each other? How can we emulate the British way of doing business as much as possible in Serbia? I mean, real British way, not the way that trotters had, or lock, stock and two smoking barrels. I mean, we have it already, so we don't have to emulate that way of doing business, because pretty much for the last couple of decades, a lot of Serbian businesses were like trotters, or Jason Statham in smoking barrels. So I mean, can we do it really properly now?
Well, I'm always supporter of the best way to learn from each other is to work together on the particular project. And that's where we can learn from each other. Only the learning is the practice is mother of learning. So we can do more projects, engaging more between two countries on all of those different sectors we mentioned today. I'm sure we can be somewhere in a year time in a different place. I can use an example of how, for example, Tech Lab from Serbia, Dr. Ivana Kostić actually made that happen. What she did, that she put all international mentors on her advisory board from United States and UK, who are advising her in Serbia how to do it. And because of that, she won the international award. So with internet, young people are very creative. As I said, their future, and let's do lots of projects, lots of creative industries, and I'm sure we will be in different place next year.
Robert, what can we learn from the British and vice versa? What can they learn from us? What Serbia can offer the UK? Pretty much the same question I asked Jadranka.
As I said, we can learn a lot from a great British nation, which is still in fields of culture, language, and economy, the empire on which the sun never sets. Also, Serbian people in the UK and here in Serbia as well are scientists, are athletes, are artists. They have all a great contribution for British and global civilization.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for the participation in this great conversation. Have you got anything else to conclude? Have you got any final words? Something that we missed in our questions?
I don't think so. I think I hope that everyone listening, whether in Serbia or Britain, thinks just for a few more minutes than they might have done otherwise about the opportunities that are there, and then they pick up the phone or they get out their phone and they email us and they contact us, and we'll try and help them on the way that they're going. But there are lots of new opportunities, and I'd be surprised if everybody's for all of them. So now's a great time.
Great. Anyone else?
God save
it. Now is a great time to think about the Serbia once again, and to think about the bilateral commercial relationship.
Liam Gallagher had the album 2 years ago. It was titled "Why Me? Why Not?" So everybody in the business, in culture, should ask themselves the same question: Why me? Why not? Why not me?
From my side. God save the Queen, and long live friendship between British and Serbian nation.
What a wonderful way to end. Thank you very much.
I will address now our audience. Thank you for watching us. Thank you for following the very first InFocus talk. It was dedicated to the relations between the UK and Serbia. And this is our first online conference. This was actually our first online conference. And I would like to thank my wonderful guests for this conversation, and see you next time. And you businessmen, you people from culture, grab your phones, grab your computers and send emails, call and make new ties between these two countries. Ours may be small, but we can learn a lot from the UK, as we have learned during the past several centuries. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.